Imagine standing on the edge of a really high diving board.
Okay.
You step off. And on the way down, you don't suddenly wonder if you're going to fall toward the water or, float up into the clouds.
Right, because gravity is just an absolute given. You never even question it.
Exactly. It is a fundamental law of how our physical world operates.
It's totally predictable. I mean, it doesn't care if you're having a good day or bad day, or even if you believe in gravity at all, the mechanic just functions.
It's perfectly clean. But then you look at something like personal success or building wealth or achieving some kind of greatness.
Yeah.
And suddenly that predictability just completely vanishes for most of us.
Right.
We tend to view success as a lottery or like a lucky break, maybe an accident of birth.
Which is how almost everybody sees it.
Right. But what if success was framed as being just as predictable and reliable as gravity?
See, viewing success not as this chaotic scramble, but as a reliable, observable law, that is a massive paradigm shift. And that shift is exactly what we are deconstructing today.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you are listening to this, you are the learner. You want the insight without the info overload. And today we have a truly fascinating stack of source material to get through.
We really do.
We're looking at excerpts from Bob Proctor's discussion on the law of success and the power of mindset, which was originally inspired by the teachings of a man named Raymond Holliwell.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our core mission today is exploring the somewhat radical premise in these texts that every single person listening is fundamentally, quote, born rich.
Born rich.
Yeah. According to this philosophy, we are inherently equipped with an inexhaustible set of internal powers, meaning success isn't an accident at all, it's a universal law.
And our blueprint for this deep dive is crucial to establish right up front. Because our goal here isn't to just, validate a list of nice-sounding motivational quotes.
No, definitely not.
Or to endorse this as absolute undeniable truth. What we need to do is impartially examine Proctor's specific mechanism for how this supposedly works.
Right, the actual gears turning.
Exactly. We are going to explore the proposed shift from outside-in thinking, which is how most of us operate, to a completely different framework of inside-out reality building. We want to understand the actual mechanics behind these claims.
The mechanics of reality building, I like that. So let's start with the foundation of this entire philosophy. In the source material, Proctor references Raymond Holliwell, who states very clearly that God or nature or, whatever you want to call the organizing force of the universe.
The broader system, yeah.
Right. That this force intended every individual to succeed. The argument is that it is the universe's primary purpose that you should become great.
And Proctor pairs that premise with a really interesting quote from Robert Russell, which kind of attempts to strip away the mysticism from all this.
Oh, how so?
Well, Russell says there is no big hidden secret to becoming great. It simply comes from, quote, doing little things in a great way every day.
Little things in a great way.
Right. Greatness, in this specific text, is framed as our natural default setting. It's achieved through daily, deliberate action rather than these massive superhuman leaps that we usually imagine.
The source material really leans heavily into this idea that the universe doesn't deny us anything. Proctor argues that we are quite literally born to be rich, so much so that he actually created an entire educational program around this exact concept.
Yeah, the You're Born Rich program.
Exactly. And the text provides what it considers proof of concept for this. It mentions this Australian company called New Ways.
Oh, right, the corporate example.
Yeah. Apparently, every single one of their top leaders attributes their massive rise to the top of the company directly to studying this Born Rich program repeatedly.
What's fascinating here is how Proctor redefines what it actually means to be prepared for that kind of success. He leans on Napoleon Hill's definition of an educated person.
Right, because culturally, we usually think of education as amassing facts, getting degrees, collecting a whole lot of general or specialized knowledge.
The trivia champion model of education.
Yes. The idea that the smartest person in the room is just the one who would win on Jeopardy, even if they're, completely miserable and struggling to pay rent.
Exactly. But Hill completely flips that conventional definition. He argues that an educated person isn't necessarily someone with an abundance of general knowledge.
So what is it then?
In his framework, an educated person is someone who has so thoroughly developed the faculties of their mind that they can acquire anything they want or its equivalent without violating the rights of others.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Education is about developing mental tools, not just storing data.
I have to pause and push back here a little bit on behalf of the learner.
Sure, go for it.
Because if we supposedly have these deep reservoirs of talent, and if greatness is our natural default, like they say, why do most of us feel like we're just barely keeping our heads above water?
That's the big question.
Right. Does Proctor address the friction of the real world? Like, what about systemic issues? Is he really arguing that a person working 3 minimum wage jobs just to feed their kids is simply suffering from the wrong mindset?
And that is the exact tension that critics of this philosophy always point to. Proctor's framework doesn't really make exceptions for systemic issues or starting circumstances.
It's pretty rigid in that way.
Very. His argument is that we don't lack resources, but rather we have a fundamental misunderstanding of how to use our internal machinery.
Our internal machinery.
Yeah. In his view, the universal law operates entirely independently of your starting physical circumstances.
Yeah.
We have the internal tools, but he argues we've been culturally and conditionally taught to operate that machinery completely backwards.
Backwards. Okay. So if we have the machinery, what's throwing a wrench in the gears? According to Proctor, we are programmed to live from the outside in, or the bottom up. And we do this because we rely almost entirely on our physical sensory factors to interpret reality.
We navigate our entire existence based on what we can hear, see, smell, taste, and touch.
The 5 senses.
Right. The text argues that if we can't physically see the money in the bank, we feel poor. If we don't hear the applause, we feel unsuccessful.
We let the outside dictate the inside.
Exactly. We let the physical, external world dictate our internal state. That is the outside-in trap.
But the source material claims that the universal law works in the exact opposite direction. It works from the higher to the lower. It moves from the non-physical, which is thought, into the physical, which is the thing.
Thought to thing.
Thought to thing. Right.
Thought.
Thought to thing, not thing to thought.
And to make that shift, to actually work in harmony with this law, Proctor says we have to stop relying so heavily on our physical senses. Instead, we must actively cultivate what he calls our higher faculties.
And he lists 5 of them, right?
Yes, 5 specific mental tools: perception, will, memory, reason, and imagination.
Okay, let's actually unpack the mechanics of each of those. Using the ELI 5 principle, explain it like I'm 5. Because if these are the keys to the kingdom, we need to know how they actually function, not just what they're called. Let's start with perception.
Okay, perception. In Proctor's framework, this isn't just about physically seeing something. It's the cognitive lens through which you interpret an event.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, say you lose a major client. Your physical senses tell you there is a loss of income.
Right.
The money is gone.
Right. Time to panic.
Exactly. But using your higher faculty of perception means actively choosing to frame that gap as the necessary space to land a larger, more lucrative client.
Oh, I see.
It's an active shifting of the viewpoint, which completely changes your emotional and strategic response.
Okay, that makes sense. You alter the meaning of the input. What about the will? Because we usually think of willpower as like forcing ourselves to go to the gym or resisting a donut.
Yeah, white-knuckling it.
Oh.
But Proctor defines the will much more specifically. He defines it as the mental faculty that gives you the ability to hold one definitive image on the screen of your mind while simultaneously blocking out all outside distractions.
So it's about focus.
Pure focus. It's sustained concentration on a desired outcome, regardless of what your physical senses are currently screaming at you.
Got it. Then there is memory. The text mentions Proctor is really adamant that there is no such thing as a bad memory. He insists you only have a perfect memory that you either use or don't use.
The mechanism here is about how we habitually use memory against ourselves. I mean, think about it. Most people use their perfect memory to vividly recall their past failures, embarrassments, and limitations.
Replaying the highlight reel of all our mistakes.
Precisely. Proctor argues we must consciously train our memory to catalog and recall our successes and our capabilities, using the past as a springboard rather than an anchor.
4th is reason. And this one sounds a bit vague. We all think we are reasonable people. How is reason a higher faculty for building wealth?
Reason isn't just everyday analytical thinking or worrying about a problem. In this philosophy, reason is the ability to synthesize.
Synthesize.
Yeah. It's taking 2 entirely unrelated concepts or resources and actively combining them in your mind to create a completely new solution that didn't physically exist before. It's the engine of innovation.
And finally, imagination, which I assume ties all of this together.
Imagination is described as the workshop of the mind. It's where you build the non-physical prototype of the thing you want to pull into the physical world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at those 5 faculties, perception, will, memory, reason, imagination, you realize none of them require an external physical input to operate.
Not a single one.
They are entirely internal. So, if I can offer an analogy here, relying on your physical senses to dictate your reality is like a basketball player standing on the court, staring up at the scoreboard to decide how hard they should play the rest of the game.
Oh, that perfectly illustrates the sensory trap.
Right. Because if the scoreboard says you're losing by 20 points and you use your physical senses, your eyes, to process that, you might just feel defeated and stop running the plays.
You'd give up.
But the scoreboard is just a reflection of past actions. It's old news. You don't look at the scoreboard to change the game. You play hard, from the inside out, using your will and your imagination to eventually force the scoreboard to change.
And Proctor applies that exact logic to our finances. He issues a very stark warning in the text. He says, quote, "Don't let the bank account dictate your financial status."
Which sounds completely delusional at first glance.
Right. Your bank account literally holds your finances. But applying your analogy, the bank account is just the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It is a physical manifestation of your past thoughts and actions. If you let that physical thing dictate your internal non-physical thoughts today, you are trapped in a loop. You are letting the thing dictate the thought.
I would encourage you, the learner, to critically think about how this applies to your own life. How often do you let an external physical limitation like a rejection letter or low bank balance or just a lack of immediate resources dictate your internal potential?
It's a hard habit to break.
It really is. Because according to this philosophy, letting the outside dictate the inside is the exact opposite of how success is actually generated.
So having defined what these mental faculties are, we need to transition into how they are practically applied to generate tangible results. Because we are talking about real economics in these sources. The text shares a fascinating anecdote about Proctor's business partner, Jerry Robert.
Right, Jerry Robert. He runs Life Success Publishing, and the text mentions he was introduced to Proctor by Mark Victor Hansen.
Yes.
At the time they met, Jerry was incredibly proud of the fact that he was making $100,000 a year, which, was a very solid income a couple of decades ago.
Very solid.
But Proctor looks at him and promises that if Jerry follows his framework exactly, he will show him how to turn his annual income into his monthly income.
$100,000 every 30 days.
And within months, Jerry actually achieved it.
Unbelievable.
The text states he joined something called the Chairman's Club by setting up multiple sources of income. He took what previously required 365 days of effort and condensed it into a single month. Proctor also shares his own origin story, detailing his leap from earning $4,000 a year to earning $1 million a year. But here is the kicker. Proctor explicitly notes that earning $1 million was actually easier. He claims he didn't work as hard.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that detail connects to a broader concept from Napoleon Hill that Proctor emphasizes. Hill says it actually takes more energy to work with a small idea than it does to work with a big one.
See, that sounds completely counterintuitive, and it brings up a major question about the mechanics of all this.
Okay.
How does merely concentrating on a big idea with your imagination and your reality will practically create a monthly windfall like Jerry Roberts? I mean, going from $100K a year to $100K a month, how is this not just advocating for magical thinking?
Right, like The Secret.
Yeah. Do you just think about a Ferrari and it magically appears in your driveway?
Well, the source material is very careful to distance itself from magic. Proctor explicitly calls for, quote, scientific application. When he talks about this, we can understand the mechanism through something like cognitive filtering.
Okay, break that down.
Think about the reticular activating system, or RAS, in your brain. It's the filter that decides what information gets brought to your conscious attention.
Like when you buy a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere on the highway?
Precisely. If your physical senses are telling you, I only have $100,000 a year, your brain filters the world through a lens of scarcity.
So you just don't see the opportunity.
You miss massive opportunities because your filter isn't even looking for them. But if you use your imagination and your will to hold a massive goal like $100,000 a moment, your brain's filter shifts.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly starts noticing the resources, the partnerships, and the unconventional ideas that were always in your environment but that you previously just ignored.
So Jerry Robert didn't just magically manifest a check in his mailbox.
No, not at all.
By shifting his internal target, his faculties of reason and perception allowed him to spot and set up multiple sources of income. He recognized pathways he was previously completely blind to.
That is the scientific application Proctor refers to. It's about efficiency. When Proctor says it's easier to make 1,000,000 than 4,000, or when Napoleon Hill says small ideas take more energy, they're talking about cognitive alignment.
Cognitive alignment.
Yeah. A small idea doesn't trigger that massive shift in your cognitive filter. A small idea feels like a grind, but a massive idea forces your brain to completely rewire its approach, aligning you with a universal current rather than constantly fighting against the friction of small thinking.
So it's not magic.
No. Magic requires suspending reality. Scientific application requires understanding the rules of reality so deeply that you can leverage them.
To prove that this isn't just theoretical fluff, the source material points directly to the flawless, observable systems of nature and to the history of human progress. Proctor actually uses nature as the ultimate proof of concept.
He does. He points out that nature knows absolutely no failures. She only aims at results.
Right.
The tide always goes out and it always comes back in.
Hmm.
Night always follows day. Winter always follows summer. It is an absolute orderly method.
It's dependable.
Extremely. He describes it as the method of an omnipotent universe, but specifically notes that it is not a capricious or emotional force. Gravity doesn't change its mind.
Because it is an orderly law, Proctor argues that infinite resources are at our disposal. He makes the bold claim that everything in the universe will literally rush to your aid if you work in harmony with this law, because you are tapping into the exact same uniform force that turns the seasons.
And if a listener is feeling skeptical right now, thinking about the sheer volume of problems and physical limitations in the modern world, Proctor offers a historical perspective.
Oh, the technology examples.
Yeah. He points out that, relatively speaking, not long ago, most of the world had never even seen a toilet, or an electric stove, or a watch, or an electric light.
Which really puts my daily complaints about, slow Wi-Fi into stark perspective.
It does. We take all those technological marvels entirely for granted today. But in the timeline of human history, the electric light is a brand new idea.
Just a blip.
Right. And it emerged, according to the text, because humans simply started to better understand and apply universal laws.
We used our higher faculties, imagination, and reason to look past the sensory reality of a dark room. Someone held an image of a lit room in their mind using their will, and they pulled a non-physical thought into a physical thing.
Thought the thing.
Exactly. It illustrates how quickly the impossible becomes completely mundane once we understand the underlying mechanics.
And Proctor is incredibly committed to this idea of endless potential. He mentions he has studied this for 48 years, and he plans to study it for 48 more, precisely because humanity has the capacity for continuous development.
That's dedication.
However, there is a very strict caveat in the text that prevents this from just being empty wishing.
The reality check.
The reality check. Proctor explicitly states there is no free lunch. You must earn success. You possess all the essentials within yourself, yes, but you have to gain a right understanding of the principles, and then you have to relentlessly apply the right methods of operating those causes until success is achieved.
Meaning, we might have the perfect internal machinery, but we haven't bothered to read the manual or actually put in the hours of operation.
Exactly. The mind is perfect, but practice ensures efficiency. Use brings forth results. It requires rigorous mental discipline to constantly choose imagination over physical observation.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? Distilling the core lesson from Bob Proctor and Raymond Hollywell, the premise is that you are endowed with inexhaustible power.
You're born rich.
You're born rich. You have a perfect set of mental faculties, perception, will, memory, reason, and imagination. But to utilize them, you have to break the ingrained habit of living from the outside in. You have to stop letting your physical senses, the scoreboard of your current reality, dictate what you believe is possible. The philosophy challenges you to start living inside out, let your thoughts dictate your things, with the same absolute certainty that nature dictates the tides.
It is a complete inversion of how we are conventionally taught to interact with the world. It requires recognizing that success isn't something you acquire from the outside, it's something you unfold from the inside by actively working in harmony with universal laws.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we've unpacked today.
This raises an important question. Think back to that concept from Napoleon Hill. We discussed the idea that it genuinely takes more energy to work with a small idea than a big one.
Yeah.
Look at the biggest goal you are currently striving for right now. Are you actually exhausting yourself simply because your dream isn't big enough to trigger the cognitive shift and the universal laws that would rush to your aid?
Are you fighting the current of a small stream when you could be riding the tide of an ocean? It brings us right back to the diving board. You don't have to flap your arms to try and force yourself down to the water.
No, gravity does the work.
Gravity does the work as long as you have the courage to step off. According to this framework, the law of success is simply waiting for you to use your higher faculties, align with the system, and step off into your own inherent potential. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.